The NBA draft first round is in the books, and we're going to be breaking it all down. From the guy who was calling the draft with ESPN, there's so much to talk about. Big picks, contenders that got better at the draft, lottery teams that are going to climb out of the lottery because of the draft, all of that and more on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Morez. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who was on the call last night for the NBA draft. And I got to say, Legs, every year I look forward to seeing how these draft picks show up, what kind of suits they're in, how they present themselves. But I got to say, there was one guy that I thought stood out more than anybody else. And it was you. The suit was incredible, Legs. I'm telling you. I'm not just trying to gas you up.
Oh, let's go. I love hearing this.
It's almost like the Met Gala or something. You know, you're going to see what's everybody got. And I'm like, wait, Legs stole the show? Looking incredible.
Hey, listen, I saved that one. I had some new suits done for the playoffs. And because the series ended in 5, that was going to be my Game 7 suit.
I love it.
That was my Game 7 suit. But here's the thing. I would have worn it to the game. Like, you see me for 3 minutes before the game and maybe like some post game with Van Pelt, right? That would have been it. But this was awesome because it was like 4 hours straight and a suit that I was going to wear in Game 7 I held on to. So I'm glad you liked it, man. I thought it looked pretty damn good myself. I got to say, I love that suit. My guy out in Beverly Hills, man, Ian did an incredible job at that.
Shout out Ian, man. No, it was great. I love too that I was almost going to tease you because you look great, but I love that it was intentional. It was a Game 7 suit that you went and said, okay, I need a Game 7 fit.
Yeah. I pulled it out a couple different times in like the Cleveland Knicks series and then early New York, San Antonio. And then I'd slide it back in. I go, no. That's a Game 7 suit. That's a Game 7 suit. Once we didn't get there, I still knew I had the draft in my back pocket.
That's incredible, man. Well, you got to call the draft this year. I don't know if you call it calling the draft, analyze the draft, host the draft show. But you got to do it this year. And I thought, you've gotten to do a lot of things lately, the finals obviously this year. But what was it like? You talked about prepping for this. We had the finals a week ago. I'm sure you weren't prepping for the draft. And then all of a sudden, finals are over, time for the draft. What was it like getting into it this year the way that you did?
Yeah, well, first, I found out kind of late in the game I was going to be doing the draft. So right off the bat, I'm thinking like, okay, if it did go 7 games, that ends on the 19th. The draft was last night, so I would have had a few days. And it's a pretty voluminous amount of material that you have to go over if you want to do it and do the job justice, which obviously I did. And some of these guys I know when I do watch college basketball, but obviously I don't watch a ton of college basketball because I'm watching so much NBA. But I dove into the film on all these guys, man, and I felt so prepared for it. I was ready for it. It was so exciting to be in there. I tend to come at it from such a positive frame of mind because I know what this means to these guys and what they started dreaming about at some point when they were young kids about this night and having their name called and getting up on that stage and putting a hat on and your whole family being there. And you see all the emotion and the tears and the interviews are incredible. And to be part of it, and it's going on right behind me. So like these picks are happening. I wish actually I could have been able to spin my chair around a little bit more to sort of take in the pit where everybody was sitting right in front of the stage so you could really pick up on more of the emotion of the family members and everything else. But we couldn't. It was happening so fast. Like you're looking into the camera as soon as the pick's made and you're breaking it down for the next 5 minutes and then there's the next pick. So, but listen, man, it was an honor to be on there. Hopefully I carried my weight because I thought we had an incredible show. And I just want to give a shout out to the people that were up there with me. Like Jay Billis who knows the college game the way Jay Billis does. And like his ability to break it down, guys' strengths, weaknesses. He is the absolute as elite as it gets in this game. Bobby Marks, nobody knows what's going on with these teams.
Best
in
guy
terms
too,
of,
man.
Oh, man, he's the greatest guy in the world. He's so smart. He also knows X's and O's too, by the way. But his knowledge of where teams are when you start talking about the cap and future picks and guys that they're attempting to re-sign currently that affects draft night. Incredible. Andrea Carter, who covers everything for us and does great job on the film breakdowns and knowing players. She was incredible. And then, of course, the host, Malika Andrews. And I actually texted Malika. I want to give her a shout out because I can't begin to tell you how difficult a show like that is to do live with the amount of moving parts.
Yep.
She not only has to get into the storytelling with these guys, and if there's cool things to be told about their backgrounds or whatever it may be, she's also got to be ready to handle on the fly some of these complex trades that were happening and people jumping around all over the place with the picks and trading picks and everything else. She did it seamlessly, man. And I was in awe of her last night. I thought that's an incredibly hard thing. A lot of moving parts for 4 hours straight. We were on the air, and it was as seamless as it could possibly be. So the crew that I was out there with last night, I posted a picture today on X of us that she took a selfie after.
Saw that.
Of us, man. We had a great time. I thought it was an incredibly informative show, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it.
Well, it was a great broadcast, and it was a fun night, man. It was a very interesting one. My first takeaway is that there weren't a lot of trades. There were trades for picks, just teams moving, swapping picks. But, in years past, there's been big trades that happen with players. We're going to talk later in the show. I saw some people chatting. We are going to talk about Giannis later on. That's a big trade we'll get to. Austin Reaves just signed a deal with the Lakers. We're going to get to that as well. But today will mostly be about the draft. And that was one of the things. Were you surprised by that? Was there conversation, especially with Bobby Marks, the guy you said is in the know, with that, hey, I'm not sure if we're going to see a lot of player movement in this draft. We might only see picks moving up and down.
I think it caught everybody off guard that there wasn't more player movement, and actually that there wasn't even more movement with the picks themselves, because there was only a handful of those.
And they were little.
And because they were, and we knew top four were pretty much slated. We knew where those guys were going to go. We didn't expect any surprises. At least I didn't. Maybe some people still were wondering, hey, would the Wizards go with Peterson over to Bonsa? And then I guess Boozer or Wilson. But I kind of got a strong feeling those two guys were going to go 3-4 to those teams. It started at 5. And because the next 4 or 5 picks, you felt were all going to be combo guards. They were all going to be guys that kind of play similar styles, some a little bit bigger than others. That's where you was really wondering, this is all beauty in the eye of the beholder. Were you going to see teams trade around even those picks? If they felt like they could get the guy they wanted at 10, would they be willing to move out of 5 and try to pick up a player in the process? I was expecting some of that. I was expecting OKC to potentially package a couple of those picks. If there was a guy that they loved, to try to move up into the top 6 or something. That didn't happen. So I do think we were all a little bit surprised by how underwhelming the trade market was during the course of the show. I thought it was going to be a lot stronger.
Well, let's go to the top 10 of this draft, because I'm curious. We haven't talked draft really all year, because like you said, we've been head down talking about the actual NBA, but I'm curious what you thought of, the top 4 guys as you got into the draft and started watching some tape and reading about these guys, seeing interviews and different things. I feel like it could have gone a lot of different ways. DeBonsa was the consensus later on, I feel, but how did you feel about those top 4 guys? Do you like all of them? And was there a guy that you singled out and said, I really like this player?
Do like all of them. I think my favorite 2 are probably DeBonsa and Caleb Wilson. The 1 and the 4. Not that there's any. I'm not slighting Darren Peterson or Cameron Boozer at all. I think both of those guys are going to be very good to potentially great players in the NBA. And a lot of people think Peterson is the most talented player of all. For me, I look at DeBonsa. I look at a guy with that size playing the 3 in the NBA is a luxury. I mean, he's legitimately just under 6'9". He is, got that physical frame that he can play through contact, the NBA level. He's got really good ball skills, so you can isolate him, run action for him. He can go get his own shot. He gets to the foul line. His shooting is a kind of I'd say a work in progress with his range. He's got a good mid-range pull-up. He's got to continue to extend his range, and I think he'll do that. He's got an intensity about him that I really like. I think that he comes off to me as a guy, looks a little bit serious and stoic at times. We had a pretty good interview with him last night on the set, the only guy we brought up to the set. And he showed a little bit more of his personality, a little bit more smiling, I think a little bit more relaxed. But in general, I think that demeanor tells me, I think this guy's really serious about the responsibility to be the number 1 pick, and he expected to be here for 3 years. That's how long he's been waiting as the number 1 player in his class. And he saw it all the way through the finish line without getting derailed and someone jumping him or an injury, or he just didn't play well. And now all of a sudden he dropped spots. he wrote it out for like 3 years, and he ended up as the number 1 pick, and there's a reason. I think he's got everything you want in a big 3 that ultimately is going to have great versatility for that team. So I love that pick. And then I love Caleb Wilson. I just think his athletic ability, man, it jumps off the screen at you when you're watching film on Caleb Wilson, and everything I heard about what high character, what a worker. He's got to work on his handle and his shooting. I think he can, but you can't just go get athletic ability. You can add shooting and a handle. You can add those things and tighten them up. You can't get the type of athletic ability that he has. That kind of bounce in the open floor as a cutter on the offensive glass, his potential upside is just unlimited.
So we talk about that because I agree with you about Caleb Wilson. I actually love most of the top 4. DeBonce is the guy I'm the most like. I'm not so sure about. Obviously, the physical tools and the upside is there, but not my favorite mold. When I watch him play, not my favorite mold, but clearly talented. But when I look at the top 10, for me, Chicago. Of the teams that picked in the top 10, Chicago is so exciting to me. And I'm not even sure it's just because of Caleb Wilson, who is great, but they also pick up another great player in Swain. Do you have a team in the top 10 that you feel like that picked in the top 10 last night that you feel like is the big winner from the draft?
Yeah, I would go with the Kings and Darius Acuff. And I think a lot of people were surprised that Brooklyn didn't take him at 6.
Yeah, it's a big choice.
He and Michael Brown, and I really think Michael Brown is outrageously talented. But if you're talking about where they sit right now, I think it was clear that Acuff was a guy slightly ahead. Now, maybe Brooklyn looks at it differently and says, who cares where they are right now? We for whatever reason, we see Michael Brown being the guy 3-4 years out. And Brooklyn drafted a bunch of guards last year, and they got Yegor Demin as their lottery pick last year. He's more of a playmaker. Acuff is more of a combo guard, go get his scorer, but has good vision, but he can flat out light it up. Michael Brown as well. 2 talented guys. I thought at 6 that was going to be Acuff. So the fact that the Kings, and by the way, Michael Brown gets picked at 6, and we're sitting there, and the pick was in for the Kings in a minute. And so during the break, I look over at Bobby Marks, who's been in that room and has made lottery picks as a general manager. I looked over there during the break, and I was like, I guess that tells you that Sacramento was pretty excited that Acuff was still there, and he basically nodded his head. So I think the Kings, because I think Acuff is an immense talent. And if you look at their roster, it's a glaring need. They don't have it, man. Fox is now in San Antonio. And so they don't have that spot filled. He is, I think, that electric, and I think that's a big winner for me.
He is an interesting player. The defense aspect, I think there is the low light reel for defense is there, and we'll see how that evolves in the NBA. His role changes. He's going to have to step up defensively, but he is one of those guys when you get into the tape on him, his scoring really is effortless. He has every skill, and he's the toughest one for me to peg because I do think undersized guards who don't defend at a high level, that's tough. How do you win with that? When we saw how intense these playoffs were and how important you had to be able to guard your man and guard multiple different types of guys on the perimeter, how important that was. But when you just talk about the offense, like how does this guy generate points? He does it every way, and he does it extremely effortlessly. So I think he's going to be a very exciting player to watch. And I think his offense, if you're picking a small guard, you're hoping it's like a Damian Lillard or a Jalen Brunson type. And I watch his skill set, and I go, I don't know if he'll reach those heights. But the door's open for that because I think his skill level is that high.
I think I want to address a few more because I think these are important picks. I think the Hawks, and we'll talk about them later when we start talking about like the teams that really made out really well. I think Kingston Flemings, that's a team that needed guard talent. Mm-hmm. They really rely so much on CJ McCollum, and they did re-sign him to a 1-year deal, and so he's going to be back. And they kind of found something really good last year, particularly the second half of the year. That's an emerging team in the Eastern Conference, but they have far too much responsibility on CJ McCollum. You got Jalen Johnson, who's like a bigger 3 that can put it down and create his own shot, but that's not what we're talking about here. I'm talking about advancing the ball against pressure, manipulating the ball all over the court against pressure, organizing, making sure the ball is where it's supposed to be when it's time to be delivered. They don't have that. So I think Kingston Flemings is a guy that addresses that. And then later on, they go out and get Zuby Ejiofor. Now, he might not be as tall as you'd like him to be because we looked last year, Kongwu, that was a major thing for them in the Knicks series. He was too small to be able to play against Karl Anthony Towns and affect him as a passer. He helped turn that series around, and you saw what happened with the Knicks after that. So I thought they need a big, and where they were picking at 23, I thought, there's going to be some talented bigs that are legit bigs, 6'10" and up, rim protectors, big bodies. I thought maybe they'd go there, but they went with Ejiofor, and there's no denying this guy has a high motor. He's in that 6'8", 6'8.5" range. Very versatile defender, but he's kind of at the same size as a Kongwu. So, but he is a defensive player of the year in the Big East, a player of the year in the Big East. This is a guy that he needs zero motivation. He shows up every day. He walks in the gym. He makes you better because of his intensity. And he's got some skills. Like he can put it down 1-2 dribbles and score. He can do some other things, but it's mainly his physical presence and his defense. So I thought the Hawks, with the 8th pick, addressing the guard talent, and then also getting a big later, the Hawks did very, very well for themselves.
Yeah, Ejiofor is a really interesting player. I mean, I think he's a guy – it's funny because he rose in the draft a lot over the last month or so. Like he's like one of these guys that could have gone as late as 30 or something like that. I saw him mock that late, and obviously he goes way earlier than that. I think they are a big winner for sure, and it started last year with the trade that allowed for them to be able to take 2 guys, and I agree with you. Another one for me, I'm very interested – I guess we're getting now more towards the middle portion of the draft, but I thought Golden State getting Yaxel Lendeborg is really interesting because there were concerns around him. He's old. There's some stuff that teams are wondering is he going to be able to achieve upside? But I really like his game. And sometimes I just think about that in the NBA. Do I like this guy? Do I think he does something in the NBA that's valuable? And he's an interesting guy. The wingspan is insane. And I just look at him and I go, you know what? Learning under Draymond Green and coming up in that system, I think he's going to be an exciting player for them.
That was the way I looked at it was I wanted to come up with like my favorite pick 1 through 10, my favorite 11 through 20, and my favorite 21 through 30. So in the 11 to 20 range, that's my favorite pick. And I said that on the broadcast last night. They had to be ecstatic that he was there because that was about his range, but you never know. He could have gone at 9, 9 Dallas. By the way, the biggest winner in the first round may be Morez Johnson Jr. from Michigan, because number one, he wasn't slotted to go as high as 9. He does, so that means more money right off the bat. Let's start there. But more importantly, he gets to go play for his college coach. Right off the bat, Dusty May just took the Mavericks job, and now Morez Johnson Jr. is going to go play for that guy. Like, are you kidding me? So right off the bat, man, you walk in much more comfortable because that guy you got your relationship with. You've obviously got a lot of respect. His very first draft pick, in his regime, basically with Dallas is you. That's how much he believes in you because he's not doing any favors for anybody. Like that's got to be an incredible confidence builder for him. And I also think defensively, you put him alongside Cooper Flagg.
Right,
man, you've got some intensity and versatility at those 2 spots. So I want to talk about that. But let's go back to Lendeborg. I just think if you're Golden State and you're sitting there and you're going, man, they're in that mode where like you don't have time to pick a 19-year-old,
right,
and hope that you can turn him into something in 3 years. You don't have time, and they hope that they could do that with Kuminga. And look how that turned out. I mean, and I still like with Kuminga, and he ended up in a better place for him. But my point is, they don't have time for that. They've got Steph Curry here at the end, Draymond Green at the end, Jimmy Butler, like whenever he returns and comes back near the end. You need a guy that can play now. That means you need some polish and some maturity, some size on the wing, which was a desperate need for them because they always play these small wings.
Yeah.
They got all of that. This guy is advanced. He's older. He's ready. Opening night, plug and play. This guy's in your rotation, and he's going to be an effective player immediately.
I think so too. And it's funny. I saw a stat that said he's 1 week younger than why am I blanking on the name? The guy they just traded to Atlanta. Kuminga. He's like 1 week older or younger than him. So, they traded Kuminga. You go through all the course. Is he too young for an old team? And then you draft a guy that's basically Kuminga's age, even though Kuminga's been in the league for 4 years. I found that funny. I want to go back, though, real quickly to Morez Johnson. Has this happened before that a coach has picked a player he coached in college? I mean, I don't think we've ever had it to where a college coach has moved and then immediately drafted a guy, but even just playing for it, it's kind of a unique dynamic. And I do agree with you that it's really cool and everything else, but there is also something where is there almost more pressure on an entire organization now is going in on you because the coach really believes in you and all these things. And I just think it's an interesting dynamic. And then the second part is you mentioned his fit with Cooper Flagg. To me, this signals a little bit of the direction they want to go with Cooper Flagg, because you could argue they're both the same position. They're these combo forwards, but they're going to go with a two-headed monster of these elite, athletic, defensive, versatile, do a lot of different things players. And I do like that mold, and I think it's an interesting thing. If he hits, you have a two-headed monster of versatile forwards that will be matchup issues for everybody.
The number one thing I said when I went over team needs for everybody, the number one thing Dallas needed was shooting. They don't have enough shooting and spacing around Cooper Flagg. So at 9, one of the guys that was being talked about was Braden Burries. He's just a big-time shooter. He's got good size. He can get his feet set off down screens. He can space out. You can also give him the ball a little bit, let him go. I thought that was maybe where they were going to go. The Dusty May hiring, because it was so close to the draft, that kind of changed the dynamic, and there were 3 guys from Michigan that were kind of all in that range. And we were wondering, is he going to pick one of these? Now, to answer your question, does it put more pressure on him? I would say if he was slotted like 16 to 18 and he went 9, yes. When you looked at the best available players lists, most of them, it just kind of
close.
Cumulative. He's in that range. He's like I saw anywhere from 10 to 12. So he went 9. So I don't think so. I think more than anything, if you hire a coach and you have that much belief in a guy that's coming to the league for the first time, that you're that much invested in what you saw out of him, you should give him, I think, the leeway and the cachet to tell you that, even if it is his own player, I would trust it. And if I were the organization, I would. And they did. I think that's a smart move. And by the way, I really like him. And I think he's going to have a major impact pretty quickly. So they still have to figure out the shooting issues for that team. But the one thing that they've been doing for a while is playing in an undersized 4. PJ Washington has been like the 4 for them most nights. And now you get an actual legitimate sized 4. PJ Washington can now play some 4, but he can also go be a bigger 3. And now you can give a really defensive minded, versatile back line. Hell, you can play Morez Johnson at center if you want to, and play smaller with Cooper Flagg and PJ Washington and have a lot of quickness and versatility and switchability all over the floor defensively. So I think that's a really good pick for Dallas. And again, Golden State, I think, lucked out with that pick being available to them, Lendeborg.
The other 2 guys I want to talk about, and I'm curious which ones. We mentioned Dalen Swain, and maybe you want to talk about him more because he's in this range too, and I love his pick for Chicago. But the 2 guys are Bennett Stirtz going to Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City making a trade to get him. I mean, anytime Oklahoma City is aggressive to get their guy, and they felt like they had to move up a spot to get him. And then Jayden Quaintance is such an interesting one to me, because I think he is closer to a sure thing as a prospect than most of the guys you're going to pick at 20, but the injury concern is there. But I look at Quaintance and say, man, that's the exact type of bruiser they need next to Wemby, going forward. So if he hits, it's going to be huge. And then Bennett Stirtz, again, I like his game. Don't, like him. He's curious. But when he goes to Oklahoma City, all of a sudden I love him.
Well, that's the thing about Bennett Stirtz. So he's, and I talked to, pick brains of all the guys that are watching him all year, and everybody was pretty high on this guy's IQ, his shooting ability, size, like all of those things. He's a winner, you name it. There's questions about like his defense at the NBA level. And so I'm saying to myself, all right, well, if you're going to go someplace and that's a concern, that's the place, because the defensive infrastructure can't be much better than it is in Oklahoma City. Like, you can protect Bennett Stirtz if that's an issue. And I got to see more of him to know how big of an issue that's even going to be. But I think for Mark Daigneault, it's the IQ, it's the ability to read, it's the ability to be able to space it. We've talked about it repeatedly. They're not going to be able to keep all of these guys that have been their floor spacers and playing a certain role for them. They're just not. So it becomes at some point more cap friendly to have guys that you feel can do the same thing, particularly if they're more mature like Bennett Stirtz. Again, not a project. He's a guy he's ready to play, man. You put him out there, he's not going to hurt you. He's going to be able to hold his own against anybody, and he's going to be able to make shots. And I think that shooting ability, now that he's going to be more specialized, I think the shooting ability actually can start to really jump out. When the ball's in your hands and you're taking more difficult shots in college, sometimes it's hard to know how good a shooter a guy is because he's taking difficult shots, difficult plays to be made. That won't be the case in OKC. It'll be more like what comes to you. and there's going to be time and there's going to be room. And now just go make guys pay with your shooting stroke. I think it could be tailor-made for him.
I think so too. I also like the story, and I mean, you were a smaller school guy. I also like the story of guys that come up through the ranks. And there was a couple of these in the draft. I mean, Wagler wasn't top 100 coming into the year. All of a sudden he goes 5. There's a handful of these, but I like the Stirtz story of starting a small school, going to Drake, then going to Iowa, and succeeding at every level. It's this idea of, okay, you're good at that level, but will it translate? And when it does, and then you go to that level, will it translate up? And it does. That makes me think like, there's athleticism concerns with guys sometimes or different things. You're like, they're not going to get away with this. When you are able to, it's like, no, your understanding of the game and your craft is so at such a high level that it negates whatever other advantages you were concerned about the level up. And so I like players that have that backstory, and he is one of like 3 or 4 that had that in this draft.
I'll tell you something. I love this point. I think more teams, organizations, even if you're talking about corporate America, when you start looking at candidates and prospects for jobs, look at their track record. And guys that figure it out and just find a way to rise to the top of whatever situation they're in, I think there's something to be said for that. Now, obviously, at some point, maybe there's some physical limitations, and that's not going to be the case. But I think more teams should approach it. But I will say this, it's easier to approach it with that mindset when you already are a 64-win team. When you're talking about improving at the margins just slightly, it's easier to give a shot to a guy like that as opposed to one of these top lottery-bound teams where you're like, man, no, we need a guy whose ceiling is all-star, whose ceiling is all-league one day, right? The Oklahoma City has the luxury of taking a chance on a guy with that kind of track record of success where you're not living and dying by this guy's development every night. And I think that's a good approach for them. And I think Mark Daigneault, Sam Presti, those guys, they don't miss much.
Right.
So it's almost like when you see picks by the Thunder, it's almost like everybody kind of immediately looks up and down the table at each other like, because if you weren't there, your mindset wasn't there that he should be picked there. You're thinking automatically, like, what did I miss? What did I miss? Like they must know something I don't know because they just don't make a lot of mistakes in that organization.
Do you have a take on Jayden Quaintance? I mean, he's obviously the injuries and stuff, but the state that he has when healthy is very impressive.
Listen, man, he is huge. He's mobile. He's a real difference maker defensively, and even as like a lob threat and a guy on the offensive glass. My only concern is the injury because I worry a lot more if it's a dude that's like 6'10" and up. Yeah. And he's already dealing with this stuff than a guy that's 6'7" and under range. And so for me, yes, I do think that could have been something that if I was running a team and making that pick, it might have steered me away from it. We'll see how that plays out. He's got 28 games under his belt in 2 years. So, we'll see. Now you're talking about jumping into 82. We're going to find out pretty quickly if he can hold up.
All right, let's go to the back third of the draft, rather, the last 10 picks. I have a couple names here. Before I say them, though, I'm curious who you think stands out, who you think did well for themselves in that range.
The guy I kept talking about, and I was walking around, and I'm watching all the film, and I'm just like, man, I like this guy a lot. And then I'd go ask some of the college experts, and I'd be like, what do you guys think? I don't know. Yeah, and they'd give me some reason why they weren't all super sold on the guy. Yeah. And I'm just like, what am I missing, man? And then he kept dropping. And I'm like, this guy. And then he finally ends up in the place that could be tailor-made for him.
I know where you're
going.
It's
Cameron Carr.
Yeah.
It's Cameron Carr.
I agree.
And I'll tell you what I watched. First of all, of all 30 guys that were picked in the first round, this guy might have the best shooting mechanics of the group.
It's like he didn't shoot well. That's what was my note when I was scouting him, is the numbers weren't always great, but I'm watching the shot and I'm like, man, that just looks perfect, though. I think it's going to straighten out.
I agree. And I didn't watch enough of his game start to finish to know like the reasoning behind whatever his shooting percentages were. But to me, this guy's stroke lends itself to being a big time NBA 3-point shooter as a spacer. But then he's got this other component. This is one of the most athletic lob threats in the draft. And guess who you now paired him up with? Luka Doncic. Do you remember Luka Doncic with Derek Jones Jr. in Dallas?
He'll get some good looks.
He likes having that slasher from the corner. Because Luka likes to get downhill, then he kind of stops and hesitates, and that backline defender doesn't know what to do. Backline guy steps up. The guy that's guarding the corner guy has to pinch to the edge of the lane, and here comes Derrick Jones Jr. flying behind him along the baseline for a perfectly timed lob. It gives Luka a weapon that he loves because he loves to have those guys that can finish like that. Yeah. He also had Gafford and Lively that year in Dallas. They go all the way to the finals, but it was like his combination of lob threats. But this guy shoots it much better than Derrick Jones Jr. And I think I was listening to Jay Billis and his breakdown on the defensive potential because of the guy's reach is like 7'4". And so you think, okay, man, there's potential there as well. I think the head coach of Oregon, Drew, said that this is the most athletic player he's ever coached.
Wow.
And think about that. Think about some of the studs he's had.
Yeah.
And with the shooting stroke to go with it, I just thought, man, oh man. But then it was weird because the Knicks drafted him, but they drafted him for the Lakers. So he went to the Lakers. Right. And then we were being told, oh, the Lakers are about to move him on somewhere else. And I was like, well, why would they do that? It seems like he's a perfect pick to get that late in the first round, a guy this talented. I thought that was a great pickup for the Lakers.
Yeah, I think so too. I love the cut you're talking about, though, because if you can combine the corner three-point threat with the corner slashing threat, and you mentioned Derrick Jones Jr., Jaden McDaniels also makes a killing out of this. He'll get in that corner and then cut at the exact right moment so a corner three turns into a dunk. And that is a Luka play. If you can pull that off, if you can do both things, then you can set the table for Luka at an elite level. So I agree that he found himself in a great spot. And I also agree with you about this. So funny that you brought up the shooting mechanics because there's some of these guys that shoot well and you watch and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to buy this, though. I just don't like it. And other guys don't shoot well, but I watch his mechanics. He has a high release. It looks fluid. He's so fluid, actually, as an athlete. I think that's probably part of what, the coach is talking about with his athleticism. He's just everything looks easy for him. He gets off his feet really easily. So I'm with you. I think he was an interesting guy. I have one other one, but I'm curious if you go there as well. Do you have another guy in this range?
I think the other guy that we were all kind of a little bit surprised that dropped this far was Chris Sinak. And I wasn't as familiar with him, but Jay Billis was, before the draft, told me he really liked him a lot. So that's tremendous value. He goes 27 as a guy that's a little bit more advanced and mature with his game, a little bit more polished and ready to go, like with the way that he plays, not like going to blow you away athletically, but he's got good size. He's got good ball skills. He can back you down. He just knows how to play offensively.
Yeah, I think for me it was Zuby Ejiofor, who I'm very interested in. I thought the Hawks did well in this draft. I thought they had some interesting things, and he's a guy to me that I look at, and I just think there's a physicality to him that I like, and I think he's going to bring something. He was a guy I was hoping would fall a little bit further. It didn't happen. And then I'm always curious about Koa Pete. Goes from Arizona to Phoenix. And I'm always interested in that one. Phoenix makes a move. He's available at 30, so they make a move to go and get him. I don't love him as I think he's a guy that could hit or could miss. There's things I like and don't like, but it is interesting to me when a guy stays in state. It's just an interesting angle to it.
I think the guy can play. I had him somewhere probably no lower than 21 to 23. He ends up going with the last pick of the first round. I think Koa Pete can play. He's got a big body. He moves people around. Really good feel for the game. Can get off the floor for a guy that's carrying like 240, 250. I like him a lot. So I think that's a pretty good pickup there. I'll mention one more now that you are down here at the bottom 10. Kareem Lopez is another guy. And Fran Fraschilla was raving about him. He thought he should be absolutely guaranteed top 14 lottery pick, and he doesn't go there. So Fran Fraschilla was gushing about him, and of course, Fran knows more about the international players than anybody we have. He was just saying, man, what an absolute steal. And now you're going to get – he ends up in Memphis. Detroit picked him, but he immediately goes to Memphis. So you get now Boozer and Kareem Lopez. If he is actually a guy that – just slipped through the cracks for whatever reason and ends up being that good, because I did like a lot of the film on him. I was a little bit having a harder time placing him. I thought anywhere probably 16 to 19. So now Memphis, I think, really improves themselves because I think Boozer's going to make Edey better and vice versa. And I think the way he was described all night, Boozer, as the best, most complete basketball player in the draft, like right now as we sit here. People were concerned about his athletic ability, and that was the debate with Caleb Wilson came into play. But Boozer's more advanced. There's no doubt he's a better passer, better ball handler, better deep shooter, all of those things. He just doesn't have quite the acceleration or the verticality that Caleb Wilson has. So that's just like, what do you want to bank on, the athletic ability and let's develop the other stuff, or take the more polished guy? And that's why Memphis went with Boozer, but then they also add Kareem Lopez. So I think Memphis helped themselves as well.
Well, let's take a break because we're halfway through the show here. We do want to get to the Giannis news on the other side. Obviously, we've been waiting for this for a while. It happened more or less as expected, so we'll go through that. And also want to talk about Austin Reaves, but we'll wrap up with some final thoughts on the draft on the other side. But first, I want to tell you guys, we do have draft videos up on our channel right now. So if you want to see the lottery picks in this draft, we have scouting reports on them. You can check those out on our channel right after this show. All right, let's go to break. We'll be back in a moment. Always a fun time. On Kalshi, you can trade every single game. You can trade on different players and different things they can do. Right now on Kalshi, what's interesting to me is where these final players are going to go. And I was looking around for interesting positions. Kawhi Leonard to stay with the Clippers, 45%, meaning more likely than not that he is not with the Clippers, according to Kalshi. You can go Golden State, Detroit. There's a handful of teams, Boston, all that are in the mix, San Antonio even, which is really interesting. What's cool about Kalshi is you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there is no house, and as the probabilities change, you can buy in and out of your possession for a limited time. Download the Kalshi app and use code ALLNBA to get $10 when you trade 10. Don't forget that part. ALLNBA, you get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. I also want to tell you guys about Shopify. What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? Well, how about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business or side hustle? Maybe summer is the perfect time for you to finally get moving on that idea you've always had. Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify's got you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show, me and Tim Legler. We're back on Friday, by the way, as well, so you can check us out then. And then we'll have Mark Stein over the weekend as we approach. The draft moves quickly. Now we go right to free agency, which will also be very eventful. Before we get into Giannis, though, just final thoughts on the draft in this one way. Is there a contender that you think got meaningfully better right away? A lot of these guys are prospects, and we'll see how it shakes out. But is there anybody you watched last night that could be a contender or fringe contender that you think that just made them better for next year already?
I would say Oklahoma City, San Antonio, probably both I would look at. I think that, first of all, the contender list is kind of narrow. Where there's not a lot of teams to me that fall into that category, so
especially at this moment.
But I guess if you're looking more like top tier teams, like
top 10-ish teams,
50 win and up teams, like those kind of teams, I think both of those teams. I look at OKC, and I don't know how much. Look, it's a hard rotation to crack. Obviously, they've got a lot of depth. We rave about their depth all the time. So you get a couple of guys. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be in the short term, but I'm really curious to see what the potential NBA upside is of a Daimara. Right. I just think at 7'3" with that sort of mobility, and he's got great passing ability. He's got to get stronger, and he's got to continue to, work on and add, I think, a pick and pop, like a 3-point shot's critical now, I think, for bigs in the NBA, but he's a lob threat already, great rim protection. And then we talked about Stirtz. I think they got two guys that are just a little bit more advanced with their understanding of the game. When that will apply, I don't really know, Adam, because I don't know. They've got to make some decisions on some other guys over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And that could dictate what their future ultimately looks like there.
Well, I think it even affects how they approach this offseason because they do have a lot of guards, and they just added another one. So we'll see who's out the door. We already saw Wiggins. I suspect one or two more of their guards will probably depart, but this just keeps the pipeline full. I think we mentioned them already, but the Lakers, maybe not contenders, but, Luka's so good. Austin Reaves just signs there. They're going to have this offense. You need guys that can finish plays. And they added one that's going to be on a rookie scale contract. The question is, how many guys can the Lakers add to round out a full rotation for them so they can be a true contender? And at the draft, in my opinion, they accomplished one guy that I suspect will, I'm not saying be a major contributor in the playoffs or this or that, but you at least have hope that that guy fits the mold you want. And by the end of the year, into the season, maybe he is looking more like that. So if you count them as a contender, I think that they got meaningfully better in terms of they added a rotation piece.
And then Adam, I'll expand a little bit upon Jayden Quaintance going to San Antonio. I just think when I look at them, one of the things that stood out was, the guys they were playing at the 4 spot. You're talking about beginning of the game. They're out there. They're starting basically. Vassell is out there. Champagny. Those guys are mixing it up at the 4 to go along with Fox and Castle. And then, of course, you got Wemby in the back. That's an undersized lineup. And then even the guy off the bench, Keldon Johnson, is an undersized 4, and he's a guy that did not play well at all down the stretch of the season, was almost a non-factor toward the end of their playoff run, despite being 6th man of the year. And actually, when I went and dug into the research of guys that were 6th man of the year that played in the finals in that same year they won the award, there's nobody's production came close to dropping off to the extent that Keldon Johnson's did. So I looked at it and said, you know what, maybe they want another option. And now you've got a guy in Quaintance who, because he's 6'10", 260, he's powerful. He can move people around. He can take on some of the heavy lifting that Wemby doesn't have to engage in. There might be times you see him out there together because Wemby can stretch the floor. They're not going to be in each other's way all the time. He can get over the offensive glass or as a backup to Wemby at times as well. So I thought, look, you were talking about the margins here. This team won 62 games and made it to the finals. They're incredibly loaded, incredibly talented, very young. The number one thing they need to do is just grow up a little bit and ripen and get better. Each guy get better in some way. So you're talking about fine tuning, and this is a fine tuning piece because they didn't really have a viable 4 to play there. Even Carter Bryant would come in and play there, undersized. This is a different look if they want to go there, and a guy that can go down there and brawl, and they need some of that.
Yeah, they absolutely need a lot of that inside. And to be honest, I'm curious to see what it looks like next to Wemby. We've seen this version of 4 guards, and obviously it works. They got to the NBA Finals, but can they keep that and build this different pitch? We'll find out now with a bruiser if he can ever get healthy and join them there. All right, let's talk about Giannis. Legs, we've been anticipating this for 2 years. It finally happened. Giannis is in Miami. I said on Sunday with Mark Stein, I kind of doubted the Miami offer. But here it is. It went through. And, it cost them a lot of pieces in terms of individuals, some draft capital. Their roster going forward, I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be. But you pair Giannis and Bam together. By all accounts, that will be the core. You're not going to break that up. You're going to start with that. What do you make of that? Just as a building block, Giannis and Bam.
Man, I think right off the bat, they're there. They're in the mix. They've got to round out the roster. But you're talking about now, talking about dominating the paint on both ends.
Yeah.
Every night, with what these two guys are going to give you, on a bad night, let's pencil in 45. In a good night, let's get close to 60. And a lot of that's done in the paint, and most of it. And defensively, the versatility that they both have, the ground they cover, the number of guys they can guard. So, yeah, do they need playmaking? Yes. Davion Mitchell right now is their starting point guard. I like him a lot, mostly on the defensive end of the floor, but he's improved offensively. They need help there. They need shooting around them. There's no doubt about that. They still have Wiggins, assuming that, he picks up his option. That's going to complicate things with Norman Powell because I don't know they're going to have money to pay Norman Powell, what he deserves based on the year he had. So that would be a massive loss. If somehow they were able to figure out a way that they could keep Wiggins and Powell, which I don't know that that's possible. Man, Powell, Wiggins, and Bam Adebayo and Antetokounmpo, forget it, man. That team is right there in the mix at the top of the Eastern Conference. I don't care who else they have. But their bench, they still have Bobby Portis. That's a big bench piece. That is a highly productive, one of the best bench pieces in this league in terms of just production every night. Pelle Larson is a guy that they really like. They still have Jovic. So they've got to figure out the rest of their roster and the shooting and spacing in particular, and who's going to be the guys handling the basketball most of the time. But I think it's put Miami back on the map, man. They didn't have enough talent. They couldn't compete. And as much respect as I have for Spoelstra, even he couldn't overcome the roster. Now this changes that for them.
I think when you're going up against teams with a great front court player, the best defense you can have is on-ball defender with a really elite weak side rim protector. So in this case, you're going to have Bam Adebayo guards the post player, the Jokic's, the Embiid's, whatever big scoring down low post threat you have. Bam checks them. But he can't check those guys alone. Those guys have always had, been able to be very good and effective against him. But when you bring the help from Giannis, the mobility, the length, the strength, all of those things, to me, that's the best front court defense in this modern NBA because it's versatile on the perimeter as well. And I think that is now their new identity, is that you are going to have an elite defensive front court, and that is going to be a superpower. That's their strength now, and how you build out the roster now becomes about their versatility. Can they score, and can they beat every other type? But their strength is going to be, do you have two guys that are big and can physically handle those two guys? Because if the answer is no matter how good you are at other areas, that will be a pressure point in a future series that you're going to have to deal with their front court. So that's their identity. I do like it. I think I didn't like this return for Milwaukee in part because I think people are discounting Giannis. He's old. He's been injured. I look at that and I go, look, man, 31 is not that old anymore. Yes, he's had some injuries, but I think that guy looks like he'll stay in good shape. So to me, I think Miami now, I don't know what they're going to do to fill out their roster. It might even take them a year. But I do think that starting point is an elite starting point, and they'll be very good.
Well, here's what I'll tell you about the return on it. And I saw somebody say they gave up too much. No, they didn't. Yeah. Milwaukee. They gave up what it took.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Miami. They gave up what it took to get him. If you're not willing to give it up, then you don't end up with Giannis. The bottom line is you got to end up with the guy. And I agree with what Adam just said. And not only that, he's going to be highly motivated next year. And a highly motivated Giannis, man, there's no telling what damage this guy can do. He's got several more years left at an elite level.
I think so.
Top 5 to top 7, 8 as his floor over the next 3 years at least. So I think they did what they had to do. You give up what you have to. But here's the thing about Milwaukee. I love what they got back. Good for them. Like, you need to get this much back. They potentially got 3 starters. 3. 2 of whom, well, even Hero's a young player, but the other 2 guys are just beginning their careers, Jaime Jaquez and Kel'el Ware. And all the picks, for me, man, you can't get a better haul for a superstar in his mid-30s. Think about that. Now, we both think he's got years to go, but the bottom line is he is that age. And so now you got an opportunity to get that much in return for him. That's very, very rare and difficult to do in this league historically, to get that many guys that you can immediately start in addition to all those picks. So I thought Milwaukee did very, very well for themselves. And ultimately, I think the Bucks were just, the Heat were just, this was the team that they thought they could do business with. And this was the guy that they wanted. And now, boom, here you go. You got a superstar. And the Heat know what to do and build around that now. And they're going to be in the mix here immediately starting this year.
The reason I don't love it for Milwaukee is I do like those guys, Hero, Jaquez, Kel'el Ware. They're the type of player that I think when they're up for payment, Ware and Jaquez, they're young guys that you're going to have to make decisions on. And I just think it's so hard when the middle class is dwindling in the NBA. So you get guys with max contracts, and then you get guys that get less money. If you don't have the money to send and you have young guys, I see situations where you always end up overpaying those guys because, well, we can't let them just walk. And okay, maybe we don't think they're worth this, but it costs that much. I think Denver fell into this trap with Christian Brown a little bit, who's a very good player. You end up giving him $125 million, and it's like, you're paying him now to be a star. And I just worried Milwaukee got a handful of guys like that'll put them in a tight spot as they try to decide what direction to break going forward. But we'll see. I'm admittedly lower on Kel'el Ware than most people. We've talked about that on the show, so we'll see what happens. But I think
it sounds like to me. Let's put a bow on this. Sounds like you're saying if that were you were more interested in Jaylen Brown and a couple of picks.
I think so. I mean, personally, I think the hardest thing to do in the NBA is to find cornerstone pieces. That's why draft picks are so important, is people want a lot of chances to get one. And I don't see the cornerstone piece for Milwaukee. So I see a bunch of middle guys, and one of those guys inevitably gets paid more. Like, okay, well, he's the best cornerstone we have. Is he a cornerstone? No. And I worry that's the trap they'll fall into.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's one way to look at it. I think they were looking at it, more in building out an entire roster. than just one guy. And look, he had an incredible year. He had the year of his life. He's never felt better about himself. And this is going to be an interesting fallout in Boston and see how it goes. And, Brad Stevens came out and said, "Oh, we still have a great relationship with Jaylen Brown." Well, I don't know if that's Jalen's perspective at this point. So he hasn't really spoken a whole lot on it. That'll be an interesting summer leading into the fall. And, there was even rumors going around that maybe Boston was still looking to move him. So I don't know if that's the case. I don't think we're going to find out any of that stuff anytime soon. And certainly not before we get into the free agency period.
More than anything, I'm just happy it's over. Giannis, now we can just look forward to seeing what he's doing in Miami rather than talk about maybe he goes here, maybe this happens. Who knows?
Well, the good thing for me personally, being that I live in Florida most of the year, at least there's a chance now I might get some Heat home games to call next year.
There you go.
Because I didn't call one Heat game and I didn't call one Magic game last year. The only
crazy.
Magic game I called was during the playoffs on the road. I didn't call it in Orlando's in an hour 15 from my house. Miami's a little further, but so maybe that's the good news for me. I get to have a shorter trip.
Legs is always at the airport. I mean, it's truly.
It's so funny. My daughter teases me all the time. Every time she calls. Yeah. Like, hey, sorry, I just boarded a flight. She just can't. It's incomprehensible to her.
That's how I feel too. I'm like, hey man, can you talk? I'm on a flight, right? I'm on a plane right now. It's getting ready to take off. I'm like, every single time. But yeah, that's the lifestyle of Legs. Let's go to our last note today, which is that the Los Angeles Lakers have signed Austin Reaves to a $185 million contract extension, 4 years, $185 million contract. What do you make of this? This is the Lakers now going all in on the Luka Austin Reaves dynamic, and that is going to be their team or their core, it seems, going forward. What do you make of it?
I don't think they had a choice. They didn't have a choice. Yeah. They really didn't. It's just one of those things where you see that come out across the wire, and you're like, yeah. It's basically, what else were they going to do? Whatever the amount was going to be, I didn't know the exact amount, but there it is, 4 for 185, I believe it is.
Yeah, 4 185. Yep.
Yeah, so. You're looking at, $46 million a year. Austin Reaves, God bless him. His story is incredible, where he came from and how much he has blown his ceiling, like through the roof of his ceiling since he became an NBA player to earn that kind of money. But they're looking at the post-LeBron franchise. So They're looking at whenever that is. I don't think it would be any more than a year. LeBron still hasn't even let people know exactly what his plans are this year, but I don't think it's more than a year. They're thinking about post-LeBron, man. And like, I think they're looking at what Luka did in Dallas, which was give me one other really, really good on-ball offensive player.
Yeah, he becomes the Brunson or Kyrie.
Which he had with Kyrie, right? And the team that went to the finals, give me that. Give me a couple rim runners. And by the way, everybody else play defense. Give me some rim runners and some shooters, and if you can give me a couple lob threats from the corner, that's all I need, man. I'm good enough to make the rest happen, but you got to give me at least one other guy that's really good with the basketball that can take over and give me a blow and go handle the ball, and he's there already. So I didn't see any other way that this was going to turn out other than the way it did, and I'm really, really happy for Austin Reaves because that's just 100% a guy committing himself to getting better.
I think you need a lot of defense around these guys. Well, number one, you need a lob threat. You need a lob threat, and so now you got to go find that. Everybody knows that's what Luka needs, and on top of that, it's a lob threat and rim protector. And then you're probably going to have to put some really nice rim protection from the wing spots around him. So I would not start a team. If I was just doing a schoolyard pick, I would not start a team with Luka and Austin Reaves because I think that there's too much. As much as I agree with you about the secondary creator, you hope that your secondary creator provides something else defensively or athletically or something there. So it's not how I would start it, but it can work. To me, it's just now you have to fill in the gaps almost perfectly. And to your point, in this new NBA, I just see so many different teams that are so compromised about. They probably look at it the same way. I don't know if this is who our number one option would be, but it's the one that we can get done because he's our guy and we can't let him walk for nothing. And that's just the situation a lot of teams find themselves in. So that's kind of all my thoughts on it. We've already seen what this pairing looks like, so we'll see kind of how they build around the roster.
I think there's one more component to it that matters, and it played into it for the Lakers. They're boys. Luka and Austin Reaves are boys. And I don't know that Luka Doncic to this point in his career has had guys that he was that tight with. Yeah. I think he's a little bit of a different dude. He kind of keeps to himself a little bit when he's away from the court. Just the way his persona and aura is, it's not necessarily the easiest thing like to connect with a guy on that level with that kind of star power and what he commands and the power he has in an organization. It's like that doesn't lend itself necessarily to like being super tight with guys. This is his boy. And I think that alone puts him in a better place mentally, knowing that this guy is there and they're hanging out and they developed this friendship. And by the way, the guy can flat out play. Yeah, to me, I think all of that adds up to this was fully expected. Just didn't know exactly what the number was. Now we know the number. $185 million guaranteed for Austin Reaves. God bless you.
God bless you, man. You can cue that outro music there, Atticus. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us here for this draft show, as well as talking about a couple big trades. We are less than a week away now from free agency, so the NBA moves quick, man. We go right into the free agency season. Trade season is still upon us, and I expect some things to happen. And, of course, we have round 2 of the draft tonight. Maybe there's more teams looking to make deals. There's already reports about a lot of teams that are shopping their picks in the second round. I don't know what value they have, but we're going to find out tonight. For Tim Legler, Adam Morez, appreciate you guys. If you're new to the channel, make sure you're subscribed. Go check out all of our 5-minute breakdowns on the players in the lottery. They're really well made. Great edits and everything in there and great info. And hit the like button for us on the way out. We'll see you Friday.
We all silly like the mayor.